As long as you didn't do something against the Shah, you could live your life any way you wanted. These people came in and not only intensified the political oppression, but also added social repression to it, which is quite amazing. And the other reason I wrote the book was in response to this cultural phenomenon that we see, that we automatically assume that people in that region are just not human beings, and that it's okay if we drop a bomb on them. Well, axis of evil, let's just get rid of them. They're not good anyway. And I think that was very troubling to me. I wanted to talk to that.
And I want to pick up on that, but let me get Ken from Langhorne to join our conversation. And Ken, go ahead. You're on Radio Times.
Yeah, how you doing? Thanks for the show.
Thanks.
I was wondering. Mossadegh was Time Man of the Year back in the 50s, and he was overthrown. And as far as the knowledge that I have, Kermit Roosevelt, who was a CIA member, actually went into the country and started propaganda to get Mossadegh out. And I was wondering if your guest knows if that's like the catalyst of this whole economic hitman type of procedure that the United States does to countries.
Well, Ken, thanks for calling into Radio Times. We were touching on that. Do you want to add to respond to Ken's question?
Yes, absolutely. I've read the book Economic Hitman by Hopkins. Is it John Hopkins? I think so. At any rate, that's a great book, by the way, and thanks for bringing that up. Well, yes, obviously it was part of the U.S.'s effort to control everything in Asia. And this was during a very sensitive period where Mossadegh came in and nationalized the oil in Iran, the oil industry in Iran, and kicked the British out. And it was the best and most perfect time from U.S.'s perspective for them to get in and to set up a puppet regime under the Shah who would do what they wanted him to do. But you're absolutely right, the information regarding Roosevelt and all that.
Well, and your character doctor says, and this is about the overthrow of Mossadegh, no one will ever trust Americans and their phony guardianship of democracy after that overthrow in Iran. Do you think that explains in part the kind of suspicion in Iran of America and its intentions?
Absolutely, absolutely. And the name of the author, I think, by the way, was John Perkins, not Hopkins. But you're absolutely right. The Iranians are extremely suspicious of the motives. I mean, and they rightly ask if this is for democracy, then why don't we go and take care of Saudi Arabia? Because I think the regime there is not, or some of the other Gulf states in that region, or in some other countries around the world where we don't necessarily have, Egypt, for example, where we don't have a democratic process. Is the U.S.'s role to go in and try to change every single one of those? So it's obviously not democracy. There's economic reasons, there's control reasons, there's security reasons, all sorts of other factors that play a major role in this process.
But again, I would using your book and even yourself is, so on the one hand you have this history, but on the other hand you have Bewitched and the $6 Million Man. You've got this TV, that's also from America.
Exactly. So in those days, it was called Westoxification.
Westoxification. Who said that? Or
this was a gentleman by the name of Ali Shariati, and who I think between him and Jalal al-Ahmad, who was also another writer, they started talking about this notion of Westoxification, Gharb Zadegi, they called it in Persian. And I think al-Ahmad started it, and it was that, look, we have a 2,500 old history and tradition, and we have good ways. We don't necessarily need to import everything Western into this country, and that was the impetus for a lot of that.
Let's take another short break. We'll get back to our conversation with our guest, Mahbod Seraji, and he's a business consultant, studied college and graduate school here in Philadelphia, and he's written a novel called Rooftops of Tehran. 1-888-477-9499. That's 1-888-477-WHYY. We'll continue our conversation. We'll also talk about love after this short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Penn Medicine supports WHYY. Doctors at Penn's Depression Research Unit have been studying the causes and treatment of mood disorders since 1964 and are currently performing research to develop improved treatments. Symptoms may include mood swings, low energy, and low motivation. Initial evaluations are offered to determine those who are eligible for treatment. More about Penn's Depression Research Unit at 215-662-3462. 215-662-3462.
It's 11:40. You're listening to Radio Times on WHYY. This afternoon at 2 on Talk of the Nation, Bill Gates talks about global health and Haiti. This afternoon's forecast, cloudy with showers, the temperature slowly falling down to 36 degrees overnight. There's a chance of snow flurries this evening. Tomorrow starts off mostly cloudy, partly cloudy by the afternoon. Tuesday's high 45. Come Wednesday, intervals of clouds, some breaks of sunshine, high around 42.
Extreme mood swings, intense anger, and self-injury are all symptoms of borderline personality disorder. It's devastating for those who have it and their families.
She hates me at times. Her world falls apart. At times she'll walk into a room with my friends or family and havoc will break loose.
Join Dan Gottlieb for the next Voices in the Family when we'll discuss borderline personality disorder and hear about a promising treatment. Today at noon on WHYY.
This is Radio Times here on WHYY in Philadelphia. I'm Marty Moscowane. Mahbod Seraji knew just a few hundred words in English when he came to the States in the mid-1970s to study. He got his bachelor's in engineering, his master's in broadcasting and film, and a PhD in instructional design and technology. He's been a business consultant here in the States, and he's also written his first book, a novel called Rooftops of Tehran. It's a love story set in his native Iran during the brutal regime of the Shah right before the 1978-79 revolution. 1-888-477-9499 to join our conversation. I wonder, though, as you look at the student revolt of today, and many of the leaders in Iran were part of the revolt of the late 1970s, and we see some of the same repressive responses to student protests who want many of the same things. They want more freedoms. They want more rights within their own country. How do you see, and what are the parallels there?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. There are parallels, and I think what we've seen is a much more repressive response, much more forceful response to students, and to people, not necessarily just students, to people who fought for this revolution, to get rid of political oppression and to have freedom. And these people basically lied. They came in with almost 98% approval and support. And within the first few months of being in power, instead of focusing on doing constructive things, the kinds of things they focused on were banning wearing ties, telling women that they couldn't come out without covering themselves, telling women that they couldn't polish their toenails, stuff that was irrelevant and wouldn't help the country, have economic growth and prosperity and those kinds of things. And so I think these demonstrations, every time I see them, they remind me of what was happening then. It's just that I think the response has been much more brutal.
And we're talking, and parallel to your story, we're talking about people who are being disappeared, taken into prisons, or their whereabouts unknown.
Absolutely. And what they did basically, the Savak agency didn't go away. They killed a number of high-ranking Savak agents, and then they turned that organization into what is known as Savama. They just changed the name, and using those people, and added to it, obviously, the Revolutionary Guard, added to it the Basijis, and have created a much more repressive environment in Iran.